for the record, somebody fucking help me out. What the fuck is going on in here in America? We have $40 trillion, well, not 40 trillion, we have about $35 trillion in national debt right now. At an interest rate, I think it was an average 3%. $35 trillion at 3%. We're paying about $1 trillion in interest alone. And if you look at our federal budget, this is mind-blowing to me. This is the breakdown of our federal budget. This is the sources of revenue for the U.S. federal government, 2024. This is the breakdown, these little circles here. It's ridiculous. 50% of our federal budget is just individual income taxes. This could be anybody from a doctor, an engineer, a scientist, a genius, to a construction worker, to somebody working at Panera Bread. Not that there's anything wrong with that, right? But what I'm saying is this covers so many a wide range of American people, other than the big billionaires, right? The big corporations. They're paying for over 50%. And then there's other little breakdowns, Social Security and stuff like that. But look what the corporate income tax rate is. 10% of total revenue for our country. I think about 350 million people is coming from corporate income taxes. That's it, 10%. That is ridiculous. Walmart had more gross profit last year. I think there was about $600 billion, and we're getting less than that in taxes. We are the richest, most powerful, most influential country in the world. I think we have a GDP of $28 trillion now at this point. And this is what we're getting? This is what we're producing a GDP of $28 trillion, and we're only bringing 10%, or we're only bringing $300 billion in tax revenue from these companies. This is what goes towards, education for our children, healthcare. This is mind-blowing to me. All of our services are being paid through these federal taxes, and these big corporations are paying absolutely nothing. Nothing. This is crazy to me. Ay. What is going on, guys? Look at this here. Look at this. $33 trillion in debt. This is from 2023, of course. A little outdated. 2023. I mean, the corporate income tax, it wouldn't even cover the interest that we have on this debt. The national debt we have $35 trillion, and if it's at an average interest rate, I think it says somewhere around here somewhere. Where's the interest rate at? Come on, stop. Why is it not loading properly? Come on. Hey, load. Where's it at? I know it's here somewhere. Where's the interest rate? Come on, man. All right. Don't do me like that. Don't do me like that. Interest rates, there we go. Average interest rates on this $33 trillion, this is 2023, is 2.9. So 3%. 3% of what, 35 today? We're over $1 trillion, man. The corporate income tax, it won't even cover the interest rates. It won't even cover the interest on our debt that we have. That is absolutely ridiculous. How did this happen? How does this happen, you ask? Under Donald Trump, 2017, we had something called the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, TCJA. And what this did, and the big kind of, I guess I'll give you this kind of little bridge version. And it says right here, the law created a single flat corporate tax rate of 21%. And if you're curious what it was before, it was 35. That's a 14% drop in corporate tax rate. 14%. That's about a 41% drop in federal revenue when it comes to big corporations. 41% drop in federal revenue. That's money that should be going towards our children, building smarter, more efficient people that could be Americans and, lead this greatest country even further. This is terrible, man. Absolutely terrible. And how is this okay? How are we just this? But how is this pay? How can we pay this debt back? How do we handle this? We only bring in, I think, our total revenue. So this is right here, total revenue 3.75 trillion. But this is only kind of year-to-date kind of deal, I believe. So I think this is going to probably by the end of the year, it's going to be about $5 trillion. So we're going to bring in about $5 trillion in total revenue. That's crazy. And we have $35 trillion in debts. And we have an interest. We're paying over $1 trillion in interest alone. How is this okay? The big corporations are allowed to go out there, stretch their legs, get rich. At what point do we say, "Hey, we're not getting we're getting boned in every direction. We're not getting the services that we need." If you look at we're the richest country in the world, most prosperous country in the world. We dominate in almost every field that requires cognitive complexity. We were the first country to break the sound barrier of supersonic jets. We traversed the world in a nuclear submarine before anybody else. We created the atomic bomb. Yeah, we won the space race, no matter what most the Soviets would like us to think, or would like everybody else to think, because they kept changing the goalposts. But we are that country. Why? Why, in terms of things like happiness and health and infrastructure, why is it that we are like middle of the pack in terms of like quality of life when it comes to, in comparison to like Western European countries? And it's ridiculous to me. Why is that? Why are we providing such a mediocre life for the majority of American people? It just seems like we're getting to the point of no return here. Oh, and by the way, you're always going to have these arguments where, oh, well, this is not really one we made. This is another study, not the one I was looking for, but it says study finds that U.S. ranks 27th among nations investing in education and healthcare. 27th, man. China's going to pass us pretty soon. They have, and for perspective of how wealthy we are, by the way, we have, I think, a GDP of $27 trillion as of today. And that's the largest economy in the world. The second largest economy in the world is China. And I believe they're at just about $20 trillion now, or just under 20 trillion. So we're talking about $8 trillion difference between America and China in terms of the economies. And we have 1 billion less people than they do in China. 1 billion less people, and we got about $7 trillion more in GDP and economic output. Please explain this to me. We are so far ahead of the competition on paper, but we live like trash. This is terrible, man. Mental health, physical health. Half the population is morbidly obese. Prescription drugs being abused left and right. We're being terrible regulation and lack of regulation is passing through. It's slipping through the cracks everywhere. We're still dealing with the opioid crisis. We're dealing with an obesity crisis. We're dealing with an Adderall and amphetamine crisis. Come on, guys. What is going on here? And we're on the brink of World War III. This is a pivotal time in American history. What are people doing here? Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is the actual kind of bill that, the proposal that Donald Trump put forward, which is what this is explaining in just nicer, excuse me, nicer terms. But if you try reading this, man, like if I was passed something like this at work, it's not readable. This is bullshit. Come on, make this shit readable for the average fucking American. Let's start there. Let's start with the basics here. Make this fucking plain English, guys. This is crazy. Absolutely crazy. You read through this, it's hard to figure out what the fuck happened here. So, and of course, they only have individual tax reform here. And it's just really hard to make out what's going on. Where's the corporate? Where's corporate at? I'm pretty sure, and I might have missed it. Yeah, there's a good chance I missed it, actually. But, spoiler, I don't think it's in here. I had to go and find some other documents related to this on the Congress website to find the reduction in corporate income tax rate. I imagine they don't want people to see that. When I say they, I don't even know who I'm referring to anymore. Is this Donald Trump? Who is this? Like, how does this happen? How, like, this document? Because I imagine this format of documentation, this standard, is not exclusive to Republican or Democrat or whatever party, whoever you may think. This is ugly. Can we just start by making documents fucking more readable, more understandable, so then we can, spread this out to the rest of the world and everybody sees what the fuck's going on? Because even here, it's like, and even on this article, like, it's not just the government, but the law created a single flat corporate tax rate of 21%. Great, key takeaway. But they don't tell you what the rate was before. Where does it show the change in corporate income tax? Where? 35. It was 35% before. And they reduced it to 21%. That's huge. But they will tell you what the individual income tax rates were dropped from. Insanity, guys. Absolutely insanity. Here's another kind of, this is from the CBO, again, the Congressional Budget Office, and it's abysmal, man. Like, just look at these numbers. You don't have to be an accountant, but again, like, I feel like they're abstracting things too. Like, why are we looking at a percentage of the gross of the GDP in terms of individual? I mean, I guess it makes sense. Because I made the reference before. We have the largest economy in the world, and GDP is the easiest metric. Even I know it's not the only metric, and it's not the most accurate. It's like the BMI of economics. Realistically, everybody says BMI is not accurate. BMI is accurate. It just depends what you're using it for. Like if you're using BMI for overall like gauge of health, like blood circulation and heart stress or just overall organ stress, the BMI it should be fine. But it doesn't account for lean body mass, and so like somebody who is muscular may be considered obese just because of their BMI. But I would argue, even in extreme cases, having 300 pounds of muscle is even maybe even unhealthier than 300 pounds of fat. But that's just another discussion. So, but the GDP again, GDP, they're compared to a percentage of the gross GDP here, and just look at these numbers, man. Look at these numbers. Wow. I mean, 1.8% of the total GDP, a percentage of total GDP, is from the corporate income taxes. Meanwhile, individual income taxes, 9.6%. We're talking about 400% more. The average American, I don't want to say average because I feel like when people say average, they get offended. Like, oh, I'm not average. I'm not average. I'm talking about everybody who is not a ultra wealthy multi-millionaire billionaire running a big corporation. I'm talking about, like, that's what I said, everybody from, what we consider the prestigious people in society, the professions like the doctors and engineers, all the way down to whatever. But if 400% more, that's ridiculous, man. Absolutely ridiculous. And I don't know, I forgot if I mentioned it, but look into trickle. There are so many studies. This is the Guardian. This is bullshit here. It doesn't really matter. But I just go to Google Scholarly, and it's not even debated anymore that the notion that trickle down economics, meaning if we invest money in the big guys, the big corporations, that we are going to somehow, their assumption is it's going to trickle down and it's going to benefit the rest of the American people, which is why historically you see big companies like the Amazons, the Googles, these very, very large corporations and Walmarts, they hire a lot of American people. They drive economic development, research and development. They drive a lot of things in America. And it's very important, right? But I think we are overstating the significance, and we're giving them way too much treatment. 36% or 35% to 21%. Are you out of your fucking mind, Donald Trump? Are you out of your mind, man? And the really insulting part about that tax reformation, by the way, which I don't think it says it in that document I was looking at. Just please validate everything I say. Fact check me. But the really insulting thing is the individual income tax was reduced mostly in the highest brackets, and we're talking about like a very nominal amounts. And I don't want 2%, 1%. I get it. It adds up, right? It's but it was only for 5 years. The individual income tax cuts are only effective for 5 years. Meanwhile, and by the way, so we're only talking a few percentage. You have to remember that. But then you look at the corporate income tax rates, they are reduced indefinitely. That's not changing. That's not changing. It's not expiring. I think the cuts for the individual income tax, I think that's going to be expiring like today. It was made effective in 2018, I think, and it does. So it's on its way out, or it's gone already. I have to double check that. But to me, it's like, does it even matter? We're talking about a few percentages there. From 35 to 21 on the income. How is that logical? How is that logical? Because that just means we're bringing in less federal revenue, and we're driving the deficit up even more and more. It just seems to me like this is like, we're going all in here, baby. Like, there's no coming back from this. The big corporations, the rich are getting richer, and then everything's gonna implode. What's gonna happen? Please, come on. $35 trillion in debt. $35 trillion in debt. And we're reducing the federal income every year. And not guys. God bless America. God bless America. Fuck.